Welcome again to another conversation that we call CHRISTalk. I'm Minister Eric Allen, and tonight I have Sister Carolyn and Brother Kevin with me on tonight. And we are going to just talk a little bit about the hand of God. In Genesis 50, verses 19 through 21, it says, "And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore, fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them." And we just want to talk a little bit on tonight about the hand of God. When I think about the hand of God, like I envision like God's hand doing different things, like holding me, protecting me, keeping me out of harm's way, pushing me towards where he wants me to be. God's hand moves in many different ways. How have you seen God's hand move in your life?
You're going to look right at me right off the bat, huh? No, honestly, when I think of that, really, I just get excited about it because I think about all the times in my life where I know it was nothing but God's hand that really just covered and guided me. And I can think of a bunch of situations where I know it was nothing but God. Like I can think of just being younger, being in this space where I'm trying to be cool, I'm trying to do the things that, get the girls' attention and things like that. And, I can think about, when I'll go here. So when I was younger, and I think it's still the case today with the youngsters, the girls like the bad boy, right? They like that bad boy image. They like, when I was younger, it was cash money and No Limit and all these hip hop artists. So we always looked to them. I remember a lot of girls like Lil Wayne. I don't know why they liked Lil Wayne, considering what he looks like, but they liked him, right? So,
The world may never know.
So me being a young man, a young teen, I thought, okay, I need to get my swag to be similar to one of the rappers. Maybe not so much Lil Wayne, but just a rapper. So I'm doing things like wearing baggy shirts. Roger, our video man, he knows about that because he was wearing them too. And back in those days, we had the T-shirts they were the long white tees, and they would go all the way down to dang near your knees, right? But we did all of this in the video. People in the back are laughing because they know what I'm talking about. But we put on that type of attire because we knew that's what was considered cool at the time, and I'm talking about like the early 2000s, right? And with that attire, it led to a way of life. Trying to do things that, honestly, I don't even want to speak about some of the things I've done. But it was all in the spirit of trying to be cool, what's trendy, what the girls like. And, that's fighting and all kinds of stuff, going to skating rinks and doing just too much, right? And then I remember one time I got in a fight, and some of my friends were not there for me when they needed to be. And literally, that was a changing point in my life.
All right.
Where I went from trying to be this guy to be cool to, okay, that's not the way to go. And I knew right then and there it was God's hand that was on me. And he allowed that situation to happen the way it happened. I ended up moving back to Richmond to stay with my dad full time. And from there, my grades started to pick up because if you know Pastor, he's militant, especially back then. So my grades picked up. He pretty much told me, you're not going anywhere until you do this, and that in school. And after a while, I ended up at El Cerrito High School where I finished, got my diploma, ended up going straight to college, San Francisco State, fresh out of high school. This is a guy that really, at my other high school I went to, they said I wasn't even going to graduate if I didn't take all these credit classes and things.
Right.
But I know right then and there, it was God's hand that turned around that whole entire situation. And from there, I went on to go to college. built a great career. I'm a director at UCSF, and God's been blessing me ever since. But I know it was that moment where God's hand was involved, and He just turned everything around. So that's my example of where I know that was God's hand.
But that's how God works, right? He'll
Right.
take that situation, just like with Joseph in that scenario. Joseph was not just betrayed by his brothers, but left for dead, and then sold into slavery by some other people. And then even in all of that, he was then imprisoned later on. But even in being in prison, he found favor and was then put into a position of power, right? And one of the reasons why his brothers didn't like him was because he had already had dreams about himself being in a position of power and his brothers bowing to him. So sometimes the very thing that people try to take from you, the Bible says what the enemy means for bad, right? Is going to turn around. He'll turn it around for your good. God just does that kind of thing. I mean, I can think of many occasions where God took horrible situations. I'm not quite different from Kevin. Actually, I got kicked out of a school, but it worked out for my good. It was the very school that I got kicked out of was the school I fought to get into because I wanted to be where there was a majority of black students, and I had counselors there tell me, "Oh, I don't think this is the school for you." They had never even seen me before. And so those kind of things just would happen. But then when I got kicked out of the school, I ended up going to the school I never wanted to go to. I was like, I do not want to go to that school. That school turned out to be the best thing for me. And it changed the whole trajectory of where I was going. And that's just what God does. God will work out a situation and you think this is the most horrendous thing that I'm going through. But then when you look back on it, it's that hindsight that tells you, oh my goodness, God, this is what you were doing this whole time? Well, I should just got out of your way in the first place. And that's my other question. In hindsight, Carolyn, how has God had his hand in your life where you didn't know it at the time that it was happening, but when you look back, you're just like, that couldn't be anybody but God.
So I lived in Mississippi for 5 years after after high school, because that's where I went to college. And
Where did you go?
Jackson State.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, Deion
Deion
fans got to
Sanders,
turn
prime
to.
time. Okay, Jackson
Yeah.
State.
So
Okay.
my dad's from Mississippi, but coming from California, going to Mississippi, I was kind of in a culture shock. And at the time, I was just like, why am I here? I can't believe I chose to go to school out here. Like, it was just like mind-boggling to just be in this different atmosphere with all these different people. And in that moment, I was just like, I kind of want to go home. I don't want to stick it out. But I feel, looking back at that time, that certain people God put in my journey helped me get along the way and make me stick it out. I got my AA out there and my BA out there, and a part of me was like, I'm about to go home. Like, I don't really want to stay here. But it was just my partner at the time, his family was really embedded in church and stuff like that. And they really pushed me to go to church. And the people I was around, it just was really encouraging to see, a lot of African-American successful people just thriving in this one area. And it was like, California has a lot to offer, but in that aspect, to not be the minority and everyone is just black and powerful and strong and education is the top priority, it was just so empowering for me. And after going to Jackson State, I was like, okay, like, this is I'm getting my vibe, I'm getting my feel for everything, I'm meeting different people, I'm feeling more, finding myself a little bit more. And after graduating and coming back here, I was like, God really pushed me in those avenues to just stay encouraged and stay focused and to not let, my surroundings dictate my whole outlook on what it is to come in the future. Like, this is just a moment in time. And that was a humbling experience, being in the South, because, Mississippi is one of the poorest states, and we are very, very blessed to live in such an area like this. Nothing in Mississippi looks like this. The people don't talk like this. Just the food,
I'm jealous of the food.
yeah.
Food out there.
Yeah, the food is really good, like soul food, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they don't have like
Healthy.
different healthy or cultural, different type of ethnic background type of food. So it was just different. But in the end, I feel like coming back and being 30 now, like that really humbled me to just, my school was in a rural area. My junior college was in the woods. So it was like I couldn't walk nowhere. I couldn't drive nowhere. The closest thing was like a Starbucks. I mean, not even Starbucks, a Subway and a gas station and a Dollar Tree. That was the closest thing next to me. We got oceans, hikes, and valleys and things to walk around. And we take those things for granted.
Yes.
And I was just really, going back is really, I have nostalgic feelings and vibes when I get back there because it's like, we are really blessed, and I'm blessed to be able to say I did go to school there. I met people of all different avenues who empowered me to be who I am today, and I know it was God who sent me there to go away to just see, you are blessed, and this is what you needed to do to be who you are today. Because I feel like it helped my attitude, too, because I kind of had a bad attitude as a young person. So I feel like, or I was just like you said, just being at certain schools, at certain people sometimes, like I feel like you kind of had to prove yourself in certain things.
Right.
And I feel like my attitude just grew off that, of my surroundings in that type of way. And going to school, just helped me lighten my attitude and to be more thankful about certain things. So
Now, I heard you say that your partner, boyfriend at the time, his family was involved in church. Did you have a faith relationship before that boyfriend?
yes, I did. I grew up in the church. I feel like I did have a separation between church and then. But when I met him, he had a big family. They all went to the same church. They all did like everything together. Their church, it was a non-denominational church, but they encouraged me to go to church with them. Like, it was a must for them to go to church, him and his sister to go to church. So it's like, okay, if we're going to date, I got to go to church with you too. So we would go to church. We actually got baptized together at that church. It was just really, and they just motivated me. His aunts were very nice. We went to Bible study together. And even our school at Jackson State, we had like a youth ministry, and our pastor was black as well too. And that's what made me go to church at school, and he was just so fun and lighthearted. He made sure everyone just felt he was relatable. And so I was like, okay, I always believed in God. I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't in the church. So I had to get in the church to, experience different people in that way too, because I feel like some people, have a separation with church because of the people, not necessarily the church. And so that church home, at that time, I felt like they were all just so welcoming and inspiring to just, be a better version of myself. And that was although he was a Catholic pastor, he wasn't really strict on religion or nothing. He was just telling the word, and he was relatable, and he was black, and he was young, his wife, he had a family, and he had all the black kids. I mean, it was a black school, but we had big kids, but he had all the kids at the church, like turned up in the auditorium, just having fun. It was once a week, and he made us, not made us, but encouraged us to do like work around the community that he would have. And it was just really, that moment was just all around. Now it's like full circle. I was introduced to this church through a friend, Darian, and coming from school and going back, hopping right back in church, I feel like helped me be who I am today too, because I feel like I need this stimulation to just get through the week and, just be encouraged and have a peace of mind, because you can't do it by yourself. So it's nice to have a nice church home and people who encourage you to do that.
Because it's been said before in one of our conversations that it's like therapy, right? But God works all of that out. Like when I look back on some of the things that I've been through, some of the things that I've seen, and where I came out on the other side, I see His hand. And I've literally, I was walking in the snow. I lived in Spokane, Washington for 9 years. I'm from California, let's make that clear. But I lived in Spokane for 9 years, and I was walking in the snow home after a long day at work, and I was trying to figure out what my next step was. And as I was praying to God, it was like literally I heard him say, "You fool, I have been doing this, and all of these things that I did to send you back to California, and you just not paying attention." And but then once he showed me all of the things that he did, I was like, oh, okay, I'm moving to California. Right. And it was so clear. Sometimes his hand, he like nudges us, right? And we just don't get it. And sometimes he's got to kind of like slap us, and to make it make sense. He had to like hit me on the back of the head and be like, look, I did all of these things, and you didn't catch the clue. So let me just make it clear for you. And I've seen him do that on several occasions when it comes to me. Even with Answer My Call, it was like, I've been leading you to this for a very long time. You knew it, right, and you ran away from it. I was almost like Jonah, the way I ran from what I knew I was supposed to do. But God's hand guided me back. God's hand guided me here to this church specifically. And God's hand guided me to my wife, you know. And I was very specific when I talked to God. I said, my wife has to be here. And the woman that I wanted ended up here, right? But she wasn't here before. And so I know how God's hand can move. And I know how powerful, once he starts doing some things start happening. Right. And it doesn't take a long time for his hand to make some things happen.
And I'll just say, I've been knowing Minister Eric for years. Part of my teen years, my first job was at the Hilltop Mall. I think I've said this before.
You were 16 years old when I met you.
Yeah, 16 years old. First job was at Harold Penner in the Hilltop Mall, and I ended up working with him and his wife. And it's interesting, none of us, it was quite a few of us that went to St. John, but also worked in that store at the time. And I don't think any of us would have ever saw Minister Eric and his wife, being together. I just never saw it coming, but you can see that's how God works in mysterious way. I remember I'm just being funny at this point. I remember before he worked at Harold Penner, he worked at the Sunglass Hut upstairs. And he was annoying to me because he was singing so loud. Minister Eric's a great singer. He loves R&B. You can follow him on his Instagram, and you can see some of his videos. But what I'm going at is just, I never would have thought that the guy that was singing at the top of his lungs at Sunglass Hut would end up working at Harold Penner, meeting myself, meeting his future wife, and now look at him now. He's a minister here at St. John. That in itself is an example of God's hand.
God's hand was definitely moving because I wanted nothing to do with ministry in that form.
Yeah.
Nothing. But again, God and how he works, how he moves, he'll take whatever situation and turn it around for you.
Right. And
he doesn't just guide us to where we're supposed to be, though, but he protects us from some dangers that we didn't even see coming our way, right? God's hand, like even when you think about the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And when you read that off, you can see God's hand. He prepares a table. He layeth me beside the still waters. His rod and his staff comforts me, because a rod, everybody always likes to say, spare the rod, spoil the child, right? I always think of the rod as a two-edged type of utensil, because while the staff part of it that is just pointed, you can use it to strike, and you can use it to kind of move things out of the way, right? But then the other side of that staff it has a hook on it, and he can rein you in with that hook. So God's hand and how he moves is infinite in how he does things. And we don't even get to the core of what he's doing in our lives. We don't see the big picture as he does. He sees that big picture, we see a piece of the puzzle, and then we think we've got some answers. And we've just got to really hone in on how his hand moves in our lives. And if we pay attention, we'll see his hand moving. We'll see his hand directing. We'll see his hand protecting. We'll see his hand comforting. God's hand can really move if we allow him to. And sometimes we don't have to allow him to. He's gonna make his purpose in our lives matter and manifest. All right, amen? And I'm going to ask you guys this question. And it sounds like an obvious answer, but I'm going to ask it for you anyway. Is God's hand on your side?
Yes.
She said yes.
Always, I think anybody deals with, sometimes if it's not separation, it's not necessarily from God as much as it is from you, the word or the spirit sometimes that people get confused with. But he's always there guiding you, like you said. And sometimes the lesson that's being learned or taught right now is either being clouded with judgment or ego because we're either wanting to have control over the situation, so we're not allowing it to just flow like the conversation right now and allow it to move us how it's supposed to. But it's always there, and sometimes the lesson has to be learned or taught a few times for us to understand it, and that's okay too. But we're all here to grow, and once you realize the lesson and you can apply it to the future tasks at hand, then you could, flow necessary to his word and promise that he has for you.
I love that.
So true. I think about just tonight. We just had a rehearsal prior before beginning this, and I'll be honest. I was a little discouraged, a little frustrated, and I just had to I was just reminded, just hearing us talk. It's in God's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it in God's hands. As a person that works with music and in AV. You want things, you have this vision of things, and you envision things going a certain way. You can do all the prep you want on your own, but it can, when you get here on Sundays and get here for rehearsals, things don't always go the way you envision. But at the end of the day, I have to leave it in God's hands and let God direct. So, yeah.
No, God's hand is where it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And that... I am a recovering perfectionist, right? And so I'm trying to get away. Well, not trying. I'm getting away from those perfectionist mindsets because what happens when I allow the perfectionist in me to take lead, I get very frustrated because I can literally envision everything that I want to happen. It can be as simple as making breakfast. And if that breakfast don't turn out exactly the way I had intended it to, that's very frustrating. But even on a larger level, if I plan a date for me and my wife, right, and it doesn't go the way I want it to, I'm frustrated. I don't get frustrated like that anymore. But like when we first got married and things would not go right, it was over. It's just like, just throw everything away. But as I get older and the closer I get to God,
you said a bad attitude. Like, I would have my day is ruined. Like I don't want to go nowhere. My face is all scrunched up. My energy is off. Like I'm about to clear the room with my energy because
that's us trying to be in control, right?
Yeah.
Instead of God's hand, we want our hands to rule.
That's it.
And we can't do that. And it's just
the real
like
thing is how can you adjust? And sometimes that be the test. Are you able to adjust? Are you able to move when he says move,
right.
without any complaints, without any attitude, without any, So I think what I was working on.
We're all
That's
works
a
in
great
progress.
question, honestly.
No, but we're all works in progress, right?
Yeah.
And God will actually. One thing I always say, people always say, "Oh, you need patience." I'm like, I know I need patience, but I'll never pray for it. Because I'm not going to set myself up for the test. Now, if the tests come, let them come. But I'm not going to ask for them. So I always say, I'm not going to ask for patience, but I know the Lord will work it out, right?
Yeah.
And so I am more patient now. I'm in my 40s, so the older I get, the more I realize that does not matter. This does not matter. And because those things don't matter and we are dealing with our faith, we have to allow our control to be given over to him because he is in control anyway. Really, we're just fighting against the inevitable when we don't allow God to move as he would move. Right. So it's more or less, we have to be less like Jonah and more like Joseph. Right? So no matter what happened in Joseph's life, he he didn't complain. I didn't read anything about him complaining about it. But even when he helped the people with their dreams in prison, he said, just remember me. When you get the opportunity, remember me. And one did. And that led him to his position in leadership. And because of that, it's like if we just trust God to do what he's going to do, all that other stuff works itself out. But many times we get frustrated. We think, oh my goodness, everything I wanted is now gone. But if we have faith that we are trusting in a righteous God, a loving God, and a God who is merciful and kind, and what he has said is real, because he makes promises to us. He reveals things to us. And if we trust that his promises are real, then just let him position you how he's going to position you. And where you're supposed to be, where your purpose lies, is going to come into fruition.
I agree. I agree.
All right, so have you ever mistaken what God was doing in your life? I talked about it earlier, but have you ever mistaken for what God was doing in your life, to whether it be good or bad? Like you thought God might have been moving in one direction, but he was really moving in another? And how did that work out for you?
She looked at me.
I feel like I felt that after school, I thought I wanted to do corporate America because that's just what I don't know. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But so I went into banking thinking that's what I wanted to do, and I was just so miserable. I felt like I cried every day. I was stressed out. Like it was just like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But I always did hair on the side, or like I enjoyed doing hair or did it for fun. And it was like really one day when I was sitting at the teller line, and I was like, if I'm gonna do hair, I need to do it for real. Like be serious about it, guide me how I'm supposed to go about this next step. Because I didn't really know how to go about it, because I'm like, I already went to school. Like, are my parents gonna pay for me to go to school again? Like, because I had to go get my cosmetology license. How am I to do all this? But honestly, when I did that shift, I did the interview at the school. They accepted me. My parents were supporting me. It all just flowed. It all went how it was supposed to go. I went to school. I finished. I got my license. I got into a salon. Like, it was no hesitation on how or what was happening right now. And I just knew at that time when I look back, like you said, in hindsight, back to the other question, I was just like, it was all for a reason.
Right.
And it was for the good. Like, this stressing right now, I know how to count money. I can count money with my eyes closed. Like, I need to know how to, or I know how to operate a business. Like, I know what it takes to get a business loan, or I know what it takes or what the qualifications are to get in these in particular type of things. So I needed to be in this sector for a minute just so I can see how it was. And it was crazy because you got to be careful what you pray for too, because I was praying like, I want to get in Wells Fargo. I can't wait to do the corporate ladder. That's what I want to do. And I got in there, and it was like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But it was just like, in hindsight and for the good and bad at that moment, I was all necessary so I can be the stylist I am today, and once again appreciate and humble myself to, it's okay to start from the bottom again. The point is to get where he wants you to be and what it is that you have in your heart to fulfill in life. So it all worked out.
But I love, because that's how God works, right? He took all of that, and it works out for your good, though, because you've got all of that background that makes you a better businesswoman. So now you're doing your passion. But he positioned you to get the background so that you could not just be a passionate artist that was broke,
Right?
but be able to manage your
handle my business.
Yes,
exactly.
and I love
proper
that.
way.
But that's how God is. That's just how he works. How about you, Kevin?
And it's interesting. We have some similarities because going through college, I also had visions of being working in corporate, being a CEO one day. That was my whole thing. Growing up, I always was into business. I always read books on the top, the leading entrepreneurs, and so that was kind of the career path I was taking. And I actually was, when I was in college, I was working as an admin for a retail corporation, the Body Shop. It's like Bath and Body.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was working for their corporate office
I didn't
when
know
it was
you worked
in
for them.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. So I was working for their corporate office in San Francisco at the time, and I was thinking, okay, I got it all set. Get ready to finish school soon, and I got the job set up already. So that means when I finish my degree, I'll already be ahead of the curve because I already have my experience, so I can move right on up and become that CEO one day. And then this company decided that they wanted to move everyone to the East Coast because they have an East Coast office, and so that changed everything. I'm
Right.
thinking, I can't go to the East Coast, so I had to, leave the job, and so I thought to myself, okay, I need to get a job though. I need to keep something coming in. Not that I really needed it, but I needed to keep the experience going.
Right,
and so I
right.
said, okay, I'll take an admin job. Found this listing for an admin job over at the Glide Foundation
I
in
remember
San
that.
Francisco.
Yeah.
And for you that know Glide is located currently and always has been located in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. And it is the roughest part of the city.
Right.
I mean, you won't believe the things you will see walking through the Tenderloin on a daily basis. But they do a lot of, help, and they do a lot of services to help the people in need. And so I
Right.
thought to myself, why am I here? This is not what I envisioned. And then that's when I knew, okay, God was actually trying to lead me another path.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know with corporate, I probably would have ended up moving away, which means I probably wouldn't be here today. I may
Right.
be somewhere else. And so I
You
thought
wouldn't have
God,
your wife and children.
all of that, and so, I thought God was leading me on this corporate path because everything was just flowing. And then there was that sudden shift. And I ended up in, doing fund development, and I've pretty much been in that lane and that career ever since. Went from there to working at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, then now at UCSF. Never saw myself being a director at a UCSF. So it's just amazing how God works, but I would have never guessed that.
Right.
So just like you going from wanting, having this plan to go corporate to now doing hair, having your own business, I'm assuming. That's how God works.
That's just how
you
it
know?
works.
God is amazing, man.
I got one more question for y'all, and he is definitely amazing. Tell me about a time, if you can, that you are thankful for an unanswered prayer. I mean, because that's a big one, right? Because there are a lot of things I ask for, and then when you get them, they ain't what they cracked up to be, right?
I was thinking about one already.
They're just not what they're cracked up to be. And then, but there are some times when God gives you that no, and you're devastated by that no, right? And that no has you like just really thinking like, what's my life? If this isn't it, what's my life? And then you realize, maybe you find out later on down the road, oh, that company went out of business, or that person was no good for whatever reason, or whatever the case may be. And then you're like, oh, well, I done dodged a bullet. Well, thank you. Tell me about a time like that for you.
I mean, we all could relate to a person. I'm just kidding.
That's where my mind went. I'll be honest.
I
It was
can
a
relate
person.
to a person, so I think that's just. But we won't go down that lane. I think when I think, for example, like when COVID happened, I was just so eager to be like, I'm ready to move out. I'm ready to do my own thing. I'm independent, but it's just like, If I would have did that and literally COVID would have happened and it just would have been like the hairdressing business was at a complete stop. We were shut down for like almost a year and a half completely, unless you were doing like work out of your home or something like that. So there really was no income that in outside of like, if you were grateful to get unemployment or a grant or something like that, like that would have been hard. And it was just like the waiting season, which I am appreciating,
All right.
is necessary because not that I don't think God would have made sure if that was the direction I was just adamant about and it happened, God would have had my back or it would have made what it was going to do. But he did that for a reason. It's not a must. And you have to be grateful for where you're at. I have a roof over my head. I have a family that supports me. It's just us. It's not necessary thing I want to do, especially in this economy we live in. It's just like, is that even necessary right now?
Right.
But that is the time where I was like, okay, let me calm down. It's
Yeah.
not what I want. It's what I want, but there's something bigger happening. Or just to say, like, what if I did move out, but it wasn't in the space that I wanted to be in? I'm
And then
paying
you would have been
this.
stuck.
It's stuck. I'm in this lease. This ain't even really where I want to live. Like, like I have a vision for
Right.
what my first little house or whatever is going to be like, and I just feel like God's prepared me for that in
There
the
you go.
fullest form in a higher visionary way.
We got stuck in an apartment that we were getting ready to move out of, and then it happened.
Yeah, it happens.
And we got
I know
stuck,
people,
right?
yeah.
And when we got stuck, we didn't just get stuck for a little while. We got stuck for a whole year.
Yeah.
Extra. So we ended up
Exactly.
2 years in a place that we were ready to move out of the first day we moved in.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, okay, well, we're kind of just like stuck. We thought we were going to just do this for a year. Now we're doing it for 2.
Yeah.
But there are blessings even in that, right? Because then that afforded us opportunity to do some of the other things that we were getting ready to do, which actually got us to a place where we're at now, and we love where we live. But Kevin, tell us about this person that was a blocked blessing.
She spoke so eloquently about something that didn't pertain to a person. I feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't go there. But
No, the person is, yeah. Thank you. We appreciate you. but let
yeah,
that
I mean,
be.
I think we all know where I'm going. You know, just dating. I love women. I still do. I love only one woman now, though. That's my
better.
wife, of course. But growing up, you know, I liked the ladies. And there was one in particular that I really liked. And I've never really prayed about, Lord, will you just send me this girl? I'm only like 18, 19. I'm not there yet, But there was one that I really actually literally was praying about because I really liked
Oh,
her
wow.
a lot. She was fine, too. But praying, I prayed thinking, oh, God, this is going to be the one I'm going to build a relationship with, and we can have a future together. And looking back, I'm glad God did not answer my prayer because that person has ended up going a whole nother path in life that I'm glad I was not, I'm glad I'm not on that path with that person.
Right.
And so that's just an example of where, I prayed and I'm glad God did not listen. Yeah, he had another plan, so he blessed me with the beautiful wife that I have now. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and we love y'all together. You have a beautiful family. But just one more question. I already asked you if God's hand is on your side. Are you on God's side?
We
better
right now
Right,
in the
right.
church.
We better say yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, I say that because sometimes we have to think about it. Sometimes we have to really do an assessment of where we are. And if we're not on his side, then you don't have to answer that for me.
Right.
Answer it for yourself.
Right.
And then if there is any time where you answer that question and it's not yes, make the proper adjustments so that your no can become a yes. All right, now, I've had a good time talking with
Yeah.
y'all.
Yes,
Kevin
that
is
was
always a
fun.
blast.
See, it went smooth, right?
Yeah, we
See,
worked out.
we
That was a
vibed
flow.
out.
That was a flow.
You just got to flow, man.
Yes, it was so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Thank y'all for hanging out with me on tonight. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you probably on the flip side of 2023. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.